Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Sports Daily College Basketball Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Vowells, and as usual, I'm joined by Mike Koomar. Tonight, we'll be recapping the SEC ACC Challenge. A couple videos coming out at once here, so we're just going to go over the 16 games that happened here. And Mike, our predictions before weren't entirely all that off. The SEC wins this 14-2. We expected a 13-3 or 14-2. The SEC takes care of business. Perhaps a couple of the ACC victories weren't the teams that we thought, but there are a couple games that we need to get to here. Any surprise really that the SEC dominated?
No, as much as it pains me to say this, the SEC right now is proving that they are the best team in college basketball. They now have 5 teams in the top 10, and they showed why they are elite. They won almost every game, and very few of these games were even close. The ones that they won, a lot of them were pretty dominant wins. Maybe aside from Missouri's 5-point win over Cal and Arkansas skimming by Miami. This series was a blowout. This also shows how weak the ACC is once again in the regular season.
And Mike, there were obviously 16 games. This is not going to be a long enough video for that. We're picking 5 or 6 that are the most important. And let's start with Georgia Tech. They go on the road to play Oklahoma. It's the Javion McCollum revenge game. Unfortunately, he was hurt for Georgia Tech. But Oklahoma improved to 7-0 at the time. They are now 8-0. And, Mike, they have proven everybody wrong so far. Picked near the bottom of the league. And while they haven't played a ridiculously tough schedule so far, they won the battle for Atlantis, and they win the SEC ACC Challenge game. So you have to be pretty impressed with Oklahoma in this game and so far this year.
Yeah, this was a put-up-or-shut-up year for Porter Moser this year, and his team has responded really well. They're now 8-0. I think they're in the top 15 in the country now. They look excellent. Now, Georgia Tech is not a very good basketball team. They struggled in the first half pretty significantly in this one, but then blew them away in the second half. But they also have that battle for Atlantis win, and beating Louisville, I think, is going to prove to be a pretty solid win. So far, A-plus start for Porter Moser's squad. And right now, if they can win these last 2 out-of-conference games, or they have more than that, they've got 4 games left. If they can win all 4 of these games, which includes a big one against Michigan, they will be doing wonders for their NCAA tournament bid heading into SEC play.
And, Mike, obviously we didn't prepare power rankings, but you have to think they are near the top here. And I don't know if that'll continue, but they have been the best team on the floor pretty convincingly in all of their games so far.
Yeah, look, I mean, the SEC is so good this year that right now I might power rank them 6th or 7th.
Yeah.
But that means they could be the 13th or 14th ranked team in the country. So they've just been really impressive so far. The entire SEC has been really impressive. Kentucky being really resilient this week in their big win, which we'll get to, I'm sure, in a later episode. But really impressive stuff out of Oklahoma so far to start this year. Got to tip your cap off to them.
And, Mike, you did mention their next 2 games on the road at Oklahoma State, a former conference game that is now just a rivalry non-conference game. The Cowboys aren't the best team this year, but obviously the rivalry, Red River. Actually, no, sorry, it's not on the road. It's in
Bedlam.
Oklahoma City. Bedlam, sorry, Red River's Oklahoma, Texas. Bedlam. This is a neutral game in Oklahoma City. It's a good chance for Oklahoma to get another big win, and then they face Michigan in North Carolina on the 18th. So, Mike, I would think that you probably go into this not really expecting 1-1, but I think if they get through these with 1 win, it's not the end of the world. I think they're pretty happy with that, considering both are on neutral floors.
Oklahoma State is going to be a really emotional game. That is going to be as even as a court as it gets. Obviously, a lot of Oklahoma State people have a chip on their shoulder about being left in the dust by Oklahoma by going to the SEC. So this is going to be a good one, and we'll talk about the Big 12, Big East later. But Oklahoma State had a really impressive win on the road at Seton Hall. So that's not necessarily a bad team. They've got a new coach, brand new team. and they're a little dangerous. So that's not a guaranteed win. I agree. I think if they go 1-1, finish out their last four out of conference games 3-1, they're going to be pretty okay with that.
And their SEC slate is certainly tough to start off. They go on the road to Alabama, and then they host Texas A&M. So it
Yeah.
could get a little tough here for the Sooners. But we do have a couple other games to get to, Mike. And this was another game here on Tuesday. It was Chris Beard's Ole Miss Runnin' Rebels. They go on the road, and they take it to Pat Kelsey in Louisville. Ole Miss wins 86-63. Now, Louisville is very shorthanded. They're a different team. 2 season-ending injuries since their impressive run at Battle for Atlantis. But Mike, Ole Miss's offense is grading out really well, and now it seems like their whole team is starting to grade out well as they pick up a big road victory.
Yeah, it's starting to become really predictable that Chris Beard is going to turn around any team that he goes to, and they're going to find instant success. And there's no exception here with Ole Miss. Look, like you said, Louisville's not going to be the same team the rest of the year due to a couple of injuries to really key players. But with that being said, Ole Miss continues to shine. They've had one loss this year. That was a 2-point loss to Purdue, and I believe a neutral court game. So a really good Purdue team for that matter. Look, they don't have that much of a challenge the rest of the out-of-conference season. They've got Memphis in their final game, so that'll be a tough one. But other than that, you like their chances to go into conference play with a good shot to make it to the tournament. They just missed it last year, so hoping for better beginnings this year. But great start for Ole Miss. You got to feel confident about the roster that Chris Beard's put together here.
And they do have a sneaky road game against Southern Miss here, Mike, but really the only place where I could see them tripping up here is if it was their first road game, and obviously we're talking about a true road victory for Ole Miss, so that won't be the case.
Dominant.
But Memphis is a road game, and that'll be interesting. Memphis just picked up a tough loss to Arkansas State. But, Ole Miss is again, another really solid team here in the SEC. And with unbalanced schedules, Mike, we might have like a pretty good team have a 500 record or less here in the SEC. I mean, that.
Yeah. It's the same issue that we're having in college football right now, right, where you got these stacked conferences, and not all conference seasons are created equal. I look back to the days of a 10-team Big 12 and think, man, I kind of wish we had those. But with that being said, Ole Miss, you got to think they do have a good chance to do well in the conference season. It's a pretty favorable start for them, in my opinion. You got Georgia, Arkansas, LSU, but then they fall into those tougher games. They've got at Alabama, they've got A&M. So January, late January, early February, you also look at they've got Auburn and Kentucky on back-to-back weekends. So the schedule will get tougher for them, but you do like their chances to play well going into the final week of the conference season in March.
And this will be a little bit as, conference play as a whole, Mike, with these big conferences, but it might just come down to luck, whether you're playing well or not when your tough games come around.
Yeah.
Like, there are teams that can get through some of these worse teams if they're not playing great, but if you're playing good teams and you run into a tough stretch and you're not playing well, you're gonna lose. And
you're gonna lose.
And unfortunately, it's really gonna come down to that. Now, it is everybody will play everybody. You don't see that in football, but obviously the days of the true home and home, like the old Big 12 and currently the Big East, still Big East plays everybody home and away. It's just not going to happen. And seeding wise, in the conference tournament might actually come down to who plays who. But all right, Mike, we got a couple more games here. We got Kentucky going on the road to Clemson, and the Wildcats dropped their first game of the year. Now, they did bounce back after it. We'll talk about that game in a different video. But, Mike, Clemson's defense is really, really good, and they get a good home crowd there at Little John Coliseum, and the Clemson Tigers pull off a huge victory. You had to be pretty impressed with Clemson here.
Yeah, what a week for Clemson athletics, first off. But you got to give kudos to them. I actually thought Clemson was going to win this game. That's what my prediction was. They proved me right. Look, it's one of those things. When you have your first road game of the season in a tough crowd, it's really tough to get ready for it. Kentucky, there's no exception. Kentucky's an outstanding team. If these teams play on a neutral court, I bet Kentucky wins 6 or 7 out of 10 times. But at the end of the day, playing in front of your first home or away game of the season, it's not easy. And look, Clemson, they didn't really shoot the ball all that great. They were just 37% from the field, 32% from 3-point territory. But like you said, that outstanding defense forced 12 turnovers for Kentucky. They out-rebounded the Wildcats, and just overall, really solid defensive performance. I think Kentucky, we'll talk about this in a later video, they're going to have to start be a little bit concerned now that Kirk Kriisa is going to be out for a really long time. It's a guy that the last couple of games has started to put in a lot more minutes and get a lot more output for the Wildcats. But I think Kentucky will be fine. They prove they're going to be fine with a huge win later this week.
And Mike, like you said, Kentucky and Gonzaga will be a different video. But Clemson, with how poor the ACC has looked, you have to slot Clemson into second in the ACC right now. With how poor the league has looked, and I agree with you. I don't think this was their A-plus performance. That they played hard on defense, like Shefflin 20 rebounds, but he was 4 of 20 from the field. They shot 36.9%. I think there's more in the tank for this Clemson team, and I think that they're going to do a lot of damage because they're better than a lot of these teams in the ACC. They can beat anybody in their home arena, and I think maybe Duke is the only team that you could say is in a better spot than Clemson right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you look across the board at the ACC, and they got crushed. They got absolutely crushed. So for a team like that to get a big win like this, you've got to put them in a pretty good position. Look, North Carolina, I don't even know if they're a tournament team right now, Sean. They're 5-4 overall, 1-0 in conference play because they barely sneaked by a pretty bad Georgia Tech team while at home. But they got run out of their own gym this week by Alabama. They played okay in Maui. They went 2-1, they went 1-2. But yeah, I'm really concerned for North Carolina after having an encouraging first weekend of the season.
Yeah, and Mike, that was the two games on Wednesday here that we're going to get to. The first being North Carolina. Alabama's played just about everybody in the country this year. They're 7-2. They're really good. I don't think they really had to do anything crazy here. They took a lead, and it was a wire-to-wire road victory.
Yeah.
That should never happen to North Carolina. Never. I mean, this was never a game at the Dean Dome. Clearly, North Carolina has a really big issue in the front court. They're getting nothing. And they need a really good performance from all three of their guards to have a chance, and they didn't really get that here. R.J. Davis ends up with 18 points, but on 24 shots and just 1 of 11 from 3. So, Mike, you said earlier you're not sure they're a tournament team. I was going to ask you that. As of now, they are 4-4. They do have UCLA and Florida on neutrals before the conference season starts, so there is a chance that they can win both of those and feel good going into ACC play, but a lot might be on the line in those two games with how weak the ACC is, because as of now, they're probably a top half team just from their guards alone, but they might really need those non-conference wins to carry them through a weak ACC.
Look, North Carolina is going to win games in the ACC conference. I don't think that's a question. I think is getting 10 wins in conference going to be enough for North Carolina to get them into the tournament? I don't know right now. If you look at their schedule, they're 5-4, and then they've got 2 tough games left. If they drop these games to Florida and North Carolina, and they get to 6 losses going into the ACC, they go 10-8. It doesn't matter; they're out. You don't lose 14 games and make it to the NCAA tournament with that week of a conference. So, yeah, I'm a little concerned for North Carolina right now. I don't know if it's the panic button quite yet, but they're going to need to get one of those 2 games between UCLA and Florida in order to really have a chance, I think, at having a good seed in the NCAA tournament.
And, Mike, their ACC schedule, they do get Duke twice, they get Pitt twice, and they get Clemson on the road. So certainly there are chances for big wins there, but there are a lot of landmines in this league, as we've made pretty clear here. And, yeah, I think a lot is on the line in UCLA and Florida. Florida's in Charlotte that game, characterized as a neutral.
Yeah.
They're going to have a home crowd. Florida's really good. They probably have to win that. And then UCLA is in New York City. at Madison Square Garden. So at least one. You need at least one, and then you need to beat some of the good teams in the ACC. And unlike previous years, that is not as common as we once saw in this league. All right, Mike. The last game here in the ACC SEC challenge that we want to talk about is their crosstown rival, the Duke Blue Devils. They pick up a win against Auburn, 84-78. The Blue Devils put together a pretty impressive 40-minute performance with Isaiah Evans coming off the bench, splashing 6 threes. Cooper Flagg, 22 and 11. It was a really good performance from Duke. It was Auburn's first true road game, and Duke just gets by. But I don't think we're really concerned with Auburn at all. They gave Duke everything they could handle, and the Blue Devils pick up their signature win of the season so far.
Yeah, the only thing I think that right now that is going to stop Auburn from being a Final Four contender is if they have a couple of injuries. But even on their bench, they have some really strong play from Tahad Pettiford. In this game, he had 20 points in just 18 minutes of play. So, look, Auburn's got the players. They've got a really good roster. They've got perhaps the best player in college basketball right now in Johnny Broome. I say right now. We'll see what happens the rest of the year. But it kind of felt like a Cooper Flagg coming out party in this game. He's had some good games, but struggled coming down the stretch. He didn't do that as much in this game. Had committed 0 turnovers, Sean, which was a huge kryptonite of him early on this season. But Cooper Flagg had a near-perfect game, 22 points, 11 rebounds, as you said. Also had 4 assists and 3 steals to go along with 2 blocks. So he finally looks like he could be one of the top players in the country. So excited to see him the rest of the year. And look, I think Duke is. We keep saying this year after year where the ACC well overperforms in the NCAA tournament. But right now, they really look like the only team that can do some serious damage in March. That's just my opinion, though.
I think this was a ceiling-raising game for Duke, if that makes sense. This was we still think Auburn's a better team. A lot went right here for Duke, but they can beat elite teams.
Yeah.
Obviously, you make 40% of threes. You get to the free throw line a lot. You do miss some of those, but just 4 turnovers. Duke is going to be the favorite in Cameron Indoor, regardless of who they play. And Mike, they don't really play anybody of note until ACC play, but they are in a pretty good spot. They have that road win against Arizona, and they go into the ACC being ranked pretty high, number 4 in the country, the most recent AP Top 25 release. And while they are 7-2, doesn't look like they're going to get beat at home unless they really lay an egg. And as of now, other than Clemson, you have to say they are the runaway favorites to win the ACC so far.
Absolutely, I think they are. It appears right now to be a 2-person, 2-team horse race right now. Pitt, you never know. Pitt could compete, but Pitt got blown out of the gym by Mississippi State, losing by 33 points. Look, you're excused an early beat down. It happens. It happens to some of the better teams in the country. But that was shocking. So right now you've got 2 teams that are ranked in the ACC, and I agree, Sean. I think those are the only 2 teams that are really worth anything in that conference right now.
Yeah, obviously I haven't done a bracket projection yet, but just kind of the eye test, I think there's 3 teams in the field right now. That being Pitt, Clemson, and Duke.
Yeah.
And that is very, very alarming. Now, likely they'll get 4 or 5 bids. There's just too many games in this league. Somebody's going to have to win them. But major alarm bells coming from the ACC. But if you're one of these middling teams, Mike, you can Wake Forest, they can get some confidence. We're better than these teams. We can beat them. And you go 15-5 in league play with a win against Duke or Clemson, and you're going to be in the field.
And look out for SMU right now. Look, brand new coach Andy Einfeld comes in, brings a completely new team with him. They could be good. Look, they had an early loss on the road at Butler. It was their first road game of the season. Since then, their only loss was a 5-point, really tight game against Mississippi State, who's now ranked 25th in the country. So look at SMU to be a team that could potentially get an 8, 9, maybe even a 7 seed in the big dance just by virtue of making a run in their conference this year. They got to play Duke and Carolina. I think they only play both of them just one time.
And it's in the beginning of January. So we're going to learn a lot about them. They do play LSU in Frisco, which is technically neutral, but obviously clearly much closer to SMU than LSU. And then they get Duke at home and North Carolina on the road to start ACC play. Well, they also play Boston College first. But, Mike, if you tell me that on the night of January 7th, after they play North Carolina, they might be in the field if they can win some of those games. But I think we'll learn a lot about SMU before then.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, that is all the time we have. Thank you for listening to this ACC SEC Challenge recap. Be sure to check out a couple of the other videos on the channel. They're going to be coming out pretty fast. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.